How many times have you nitpicked, changed, and procrastinated on a project that you know you should have done a long time ago? And doesn't it always feel like such a big challenge and anxiety inducing when you know you need to do something, yet it always seems like a part of your brain never wants to do it? Like it's actually scared of something, like you need to be better and better, even though you know logically these expectations shouldn't exist or they don't actually have meaningful impact in your life. Because at a neuroscientific level, your brain is predicting that the work you are doing is just as threatening as if a tiger came up and tried to attack you. You don't need more realistic goals, meditation, and self care. You need to start looking at the science of what is going on internally. This isn't just perfectionism. This is burnout, procrastination, and a loophole where your brain's only going to crystallize these fears more and more. Until we can fix this, this is a problem that's going to be lifelong for you, paralyzing every action that you want to do. Every successful dream you want to have is going to be determined if you can get past your own brain's safety mechanisms. So, what actually happens in the brain and in the chemistry of our mind when we are perfectionists? Anytime you sit down to do a task, it goes through our brain's monitoring system, which is typically our ACC and our medial frontal cortex. What this part of the brain does is it determines our expectations of the work we're doing. Basically, any task you do, you're always going to have an innate amount of understanding what our expectations and effort cost are actually going to be. When you go to the gym, you expect yourself to push yourself to a certain limit. When you work on a website, you expect a certain amount of visual progress to happen over the day. But the secret is that sometimes your brain has these expectations that we don't really logically control. And that's the first disconnect. As our brain starts to build expectations that we're not actually fundamentally aware of, or even if we are, is something that we can't really control, it sends an error signal to the rest of the brain. At this point, it goes on to the second part of the brain in the system, which is the amygdala, the fear response system. The amygdala is traditionally known as an activating system for any sort of danger. If a tiger attacks you, you are going to have your amygdala activated. If someone threatens you with a knife, your amygdala is going to be activated. This is the part of the brain that will cause higher cortisol levels, cause anxiety, and all negative effects you can associate with high stress levels. But neither parts of these brains so far has determined what emotions you feel. There's a part of our brain called the DACC, the dorsal median singular cortex. The DACC's job is very simple. We compare the effort of any task and the reward that we would get from doing that task. The things that determine our effort and reward were already previously established by the first parts of the brain. But the main issue is that those parts of their brain already got hijacked. They don't like this. They're sending error signals. They're sending stress signals. So they're telling your DACC that, hey, this task, this is overwhelming. This is too much. We cannot handle this. You're not going to get any reward, and it's way too much effort. Okay, you might literally die if you do this task. And yes, I mean it. There's parts of evolutionary psychology that suggest that when your amygdala is activated, some of this more evolutionary lizard brain part of us, literally suggesting that you might die from doing certain tasks, or at least it is perceiving that you might die. A quick side note is the fact that back in our evolutionary days, if a task was too effortful or too risky or other people's opinions were involved, this means we could have been kicked out of the tribe. It means that we could have died from exhaustion when we ran out of resources, either calorically or physically with materials. So that's why our amygdala likes to overreact at certain small tasks. So you end up getting the results of being mentally and physically exhausted just at the thought of doing something. You can never push yourself. It's very hard to be consistent. Everything seems to overwhelm you. You immediately go on your phone when you're a little bit stressed out, and you never really make that grand progress. The best part is when you do make progress and you are motivated to do something, a lot of times you don't actually work on the bigger project. You work on the smaller things. You do journaling and scripting and goal setting for, the bigger things, not really the thing you're actually needing to confront. Enough of this blabber. Okay, enough of this blabber. What do we actually do about this? The reason I explained the entire process from neuroscientific standpoint is because now we have three key features as to what's causing our perfectionism. And if we could go through and find a solution for each one of these stages, or at least multiple of them, we will have success in getting rid of our perfectionism. And yeah, it's kind of easier than we all expected. And no, you don't have to do a self-care routine like some girl on a blog would tell you to do. First, we're going to do something called preemptive cognitive reappraisal. And so now we're going to get into some deep psychology. And if you take this information the wrong way, or I guess correct way, you can actually learn a lot of psychology, even into the terms of like marketing and human manipulation. Whenever you go to work on something, you are always assuming that there is a result that is good and a result that is bad. Most often with perfectionists, they have a traditional idea. Now, I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. And so even during this conversation, as I'm talking to you, I have expectations of how I should pronunciate my words, the pacing of how I should speak, and how clear overall I am with my message. So, your expectations and beliefs around a certain subject, the things that you think are good, are only determined by previous data. I like to say the word belief systems because I believe that everything that we presumptively have an expectation about is just simply a belief. It's just a belief system. So, like if I touch my hand on a hot stove, that's the set of data. I'm moving my hand over something that's red hot. And the moment I touch it, I have the end result that my hand is burned. I get negative sensations and so on. The same goes with all the work we've done. If you try to work on a project, you have the data set. I'm going to work today. I'm going to grind really hard. I'm going to be super disciplined. And you actually take effort for once. That's the data set. But sometimes your brain miscalculates the reward you actually got. Maybe some days you tried really hard and you didn't actually make a lot of progress. This only ingrains further in a perfectionist mind that work doesn't actually equal a good amount of progress. Logic can only take us so far because the second set of data is emotions. Emotional manipulation and emotions is one of the largest and most cultivating ways to change somebody's beliefs and mind. This is what you see in marketing all the time. When Dyson is making a commercial for a vacuum, they're not telling you this is logically the best motor in the vacuum. They're showing a video of a mom being a good mom to her children. She's cleaning the house. This is an appeal to emotions. If you can appeal to somebody's emotions or a story arc that somebody has in their mind, meaning that they think they're the superhero, that they are the good guy in the story, that they've had something traumatic happen to them. They got into a breakup, their parents left them, whatever it might have been when they were young, that's caused a arc so that way they can now become the superhero. This a manipulation of either story or emotions will also greatly affect our belief system. And for the belief system, the last point is repetition. There's a reason that the news continuously spills information to you. And every single billboard, every single news channel, and even YouTube, every social media platform is trying to blast as much information into your little mind as it possibly can. That's because repetition of information is how you convince people of things. It's how you brainwash a generation or multiple generations. The more information, either emotional and logical, that you can spew at a high velocity, at a high rate, you're going to change somebody's mind. This is pretty obvious when you look at a political climate. People on one half are very logical, on the other half, maybe on the same team, they're going to be very emotional and very emotionally compelling. Repeat this cycle, put it on every news channel, everywhere on the internet, and you're going to convince people that some things are good and some things are bad. You see how I tied that back here? You see, I'm trying to tie back to the fact that you can convince yourself that some things are good and some things are bad. At a core basis, perfectionism comes down to you believing that a result is good and some results are bad. And so your job, and some of the easiest ways to figure out what I actually want to convince myself of, is to take what you already believe as bad and make it so you do manipulation on yourself to convince yourself that it's good. As an example, if I was to stutter too much on our conversation, or I talk at a bad pace, or something, awkward happens, kind of like right now, what ends up happening is that my perfectionist brain says, oh, I should kind of restart this recording. I should at least go back a few steps. I should, redo this whole segment. But if I was to take that thing that's bad and I was to try to reframe it into something that's being good, this is going to help get rid of a lot of my perfectionism. Like, as an example, me stuttering and being too slow and not being expressionate enough, old self me would consider this to be bad, but new self me would consider this to be authentic. Authentic. You see, I'm already messing up. That authenticity is actually a new resource in the global market. And so, if I can convince myself with logic and emotions and repetition that authenticity matters more than perfectionism, then I'm going to have an easy time making this content. AI is coming out. AI is like the opposite of authenticity. People are looking for real human connection. People don't mind mistakes. I'm the only one who minds little mistakes, hopefully. Or if you're judging me, that's fine. Leave a comment down below and boost my video. I don't really care. And so you see, I can change the thing that I thought was bad, me stumbling and mumbling and saying the same thing over and over again. And I change it to something that I perceived as actually really good because I brought up logic. Oh, AI exists. I brought up emotions. People would probably feel a certain way towards me if I was more authentic. And then deep down, if I was to like meditate or visualize this, I would feel emotions. And the more I kept thinking about it and got other people's perspectives that agree with me, I'm going to start to believe something else about my work. So take whatever you find as your weakness right now, or whatever you would deem as, a bad result, and try to learn how to flip it on its head. This goes with literally anything, approaching people, public conversations, anything kind of like this. Essentially, there are certain mindsets that you can end up adapting that makes it so the second part of the process where our amygdala overreacts doesn't overreact as much, or you can become content with it, kind of down regulating its, excessive nature. So remember again, after the first part of the process is our brain builds up expectations of the work we're doing. We already kind of handled that. Next is it goes to our amygdala, which overreacts and sends us stress signals. So the reason it's overreacting is not only because obviously our beliefs around a certain subject, but it's overreacting because we are not content even if we do fail. There's a story that I love so much from a YouTuber, famous big guy on YouTube, named Alex Hermosi. He explains the story of the dice roll. Every time I try to work really hard or be productive, it seems like I get negative results or not the results that I would prefer after I'm done working on something. Maybe a video of mine doesn't get a lot of views. Maybe a business or a product that I've ran didn't sell a lot of that product. Every time I became demotivated after an action, and we could get into the whole role of dopamine and dopamine reinforcement here, but the more important thing is the mindset. So Alex Hormozy brought up the fact that you can imagine your life as you are rolling a dice. This dice might have 200 sides on it or 2,000 sides on it. And the entire dice is red except for one of the sides that are green. Now, the rule is if you roll it and it lands on a red side, nothing happens. But if it lands on a green side, you will get one more face to turn from red to green. So theoretically, if you keep rolling, more of the sides of these dice is going to go from red to green, therefore increasing your chance. So you keep rolling and rolling and you get exponential results. Building up a mindset like this is going to dramatically help you. After all, our amygdala overreacts at a lot of things. It is only overreacting because we're scared we're going to fail. But what if we made it so we weren't scared we're going to fail and we could be content with it? This is where some, meditation, mindset work, and things like that can come into play. If you go on a nice walk, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, you enjoy yourself, and you sit with the thoughts of the fear, you might alleviate or downregulate your amygdala a little bit. You can talk to yourself, you can talk to other people, do catharsis, write down scripts, pray to God, whatever you want to do. This is going to help you downregulate your amygdala, helping out the process, making it easier to work. Look at that. Look at that plant. He's just doing plant things. Too bad us humans can't just do plant things. I've been keeping the best for last when it comes to things that we can do. And essentially, we're going to try to do exposure therapy. At a basis, what is going on in our mind is we have expectations, our amygdala overreacts, we have fear responses, and then our brain, our DACC determines, hey, this is too much effort, this is too much work compared to the reward we're gonna get. And all this is happening because our brain is used to being a perfectionist. It's been a perfectionist. It's saying that the results or effort is too high, it's too scary, we might die by doing it. Your mind has a certain restriction set of beliefs, and your actions will always and only follow through with what you have previously said as possible and within the vicinity of these beliefs. And so your job is to make an external world, a rule set that bypasses and goes outside of these beliefs. We need to prove to our own mind we won't die from doing that activity in the first place. Then maybe it won't be as bad. And then we'll also get to a second half step of exposure therapy that's going to blow your mind away. Exposure therapy is pretty simple. Essentially, we're going to make a new rule set for the work that we are going to be doing. And then we're going to force ourselves to do that work no matter what. And as an example, I make, these conversations with you. And sometimes I would have a old schedule where I would take 3 days or so to research a topic. I'd take 2 days to record it. I'd be like, oh, editing takes so long. I had to have a whole day for my thumbnail, all this different stuff. Let me break the rules. What if I try to upload a video every single day? A part of your mind, now listen here, listen, you gotta listen to me, okay? A part of your mind is going to say that's impossible. A part of your mind is gonna say that this is a crazy talk. And you gotta understand that there's a reason I call this channel The Mind Lies, because your mind is an expectation machine. It's not a truth machine, it's an expectation machine. It doesn't know the actual facts. It builds expectations. And that's the thing. Your mind will convince you that certain things aren't possible. Even though you've never done it and you've seen other people do it, you just simply, your mind is going to convince you that doing something every day or pushing yourself to a new limit is just simply not possible. And so the whole point of exposure therapy is to make yourself kind of go through a mental breakdown. Yes, I'm telling you to go insane on purpose. But you're meant to go through a mental breakdown. You're meant to push yourself to an absolute limit and make a new rule set that'll bypass what you already believe is possible. Don't take it so far to where it's like that's actually not possible. Obviously, if I had to make 5 videos in a single day, that's actually just not possible. But a video every day, that is. You need to bend the rule set of what you define as success in order to fit into your other rules, right? So if I'm bending the rule set of my time, meaning I have to upload every single day, that means that my expectation of quality of work is not going to be the same. And that's the whole thing. You're going to have to bend every rule. As one rule increases, the other rule has to decrease. So if you want to have a higher frequency or more consistency, that means that your energy levels and your quality of the work is probably going to have to go down. But that's the entire point, is to have new experiences. It's called exposure therapy. It's about breaking and setting up new rules to prove to your mind that those old rules sets, that old perfectionism mindset, actually isn't the most useful thing. Your mind is a little bit egotistical. Okay, it's actually very egotistical. Your mind likes to think in a perspective that it's always right, that it knows what's best for you, it knows what's going to kill you, it knows exactly what's going to cause you the best results. Your brain has made it so you can only take some actions. And if you dare to ever take action outside of that rule set, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel lethargic, you're going to have brain fog, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to want to hate yourself because the brain knows best. It knows best for your survival. It's like somebody who's really egotistical on the street telling you that they know everything and they're super cocky and annoying. And if you go up to them and you can disprove some of their claims, they might get frustrated and they'll leave you alone because they're so frustrated. That's how the brain works with perfectionism. The last 2 steps, the most important things, is number 1, reflection. If you do exposure therapy, the number 1 thing you need to do is reflecting on the experiences. Write down scripts at 20 minutes a day. Reflect. This is going to help your dopamine responsiveness for the next task you do. I'm not going to get into too much science. I really feel like this conversation is super long. But if you can reflect, you're going to have a better energy level the next time you want to do the activity due to something called dopamine reinforcement. Because dopamine is what determines how energetic you feel. And scripting and doing all this stuff is going to help that reinforcement actually activate in a good way. And then one of the most important steps you need in any sort of process like this is to have somebody guide you through. Make sure the actions you're taking is actually not too extreme, but also not too easy, or else you're going to fall into the same pattern that you've always been. If you don't want to continuously watch 1,000 YouTube videos and podcast episodes and searching on Reddit and everything you need to do in order to find some sort of fix for your life, if you want a mentor, there's a link down below in the description to have me personally as your mentor and do scientific evidence, and I'm going to help you change your life. Anyways, thank you. See you. Bye.